He's helping with the food. He's helping with the food, yeah.
Let's recite the Fatiha, please. For me, inshallah. Bismillah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي لا يبلغ مد حقه القائلون ولا يحصي نعمه العادون ولا يؤدي حقه المجتهدون الذي لا يدركه بعد الحمم ولا يناله غوص الفطن ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين حبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وشفيع ذنوبنا سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين صاحب العصر والزمان خليفة الرحمن إمام الإنس والجان ولعن الله وعداهم أجمعين إلى يوم الدين أما بعد فقد قال الله وقوله الحق بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الذين جاهدوا فينا لنهدينهم سبلنا وإن الله لمع المحسنين صدق الله العلي العظيم صلوات على محمد
اللهم صل على محمد.
Our discussion since the midpoint of the month of Ramadan has been revolving around the science of ethics and morals in Islam. An attempt now to visit and revisit those either virtues or those vices that sometimes either strengthen the heart of ours or corrupt them. In light of the fact that our homes now are burning, divorce rates are up, families are falling apart, communities are now disuniting. And so naturally we have to sometimes go ahead and ensure that we revisit those things that Islam talked about. I mentioned it last night that whether it be education at your age or worship towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or any sort of goal you might have, you must travel through the path of ethics and morals before getting anywhere else. Before one sajda, we have to clean our hearts. Before one midterm or final, we must pair that with the purification of our hearts. There's no point in us trying to better ourselves in terms of our GPA or our marks or our salat for not working on our hearts. If there's still envy and jealousy and ego and narcissism and impatience, all this still resides in our hearts, then God forbid our efforts now to become a better student, a better servant of God, all goes to waste. Last night we spoke about anger. And we talked about the vicious side of anger, where our sixth Imam says, Al-ghadabu miftahu kulli shar, that anger is the key to everything that's evil out there. Everything that's evil, from divorce rates to broken hearts to broken families to you name it, sometimes all stems from what? Anger. I also talked about the idea that not every emotion inside of us has a vicious side to us. So I tried to be a little bit balanced yesterday, talking a little bit about the idea that when governed properly, these emotions of ours, anger, desire, can actually lead towards a very desired characteristic. For example, when governed, anger can actually lead towards courage and bravery. There is a deficient side of the emotion. There is an excessive side of the emotion. We talked about how both extremes exist in Islam, meaning Islam rejects both extremes. A deficient amount of anger is rejected by Islam. An excessive amount of anger is also rejected by Islam as well. And that leads me to tonight. Tonight, I want to speak about the vicious side of being prejudiced in our religion. Asabiya. And as much as we think that we have moved forward as human beings, we're past all that. We don't see color, we don't see gender, we don't see creed, we don't see salary, we don't see height, we don't see colored eyes. Unfortunately, that's still very, very rampant in our communities, in our families, even inside of our own hearts as well. Let's dissect this topic a little bit further by looking at initially the hadith that Imam Khomeini chooses now to comment on in his book of 40 hadiths from our Prophet of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And it's one of those strong hadiths. He says, "Man kana fi qalbihi habbatun min khardalin min asabiyya." The one who has in their hearts, man kana fi qalbihi, in their hearts. What's habbatun min khardalin? A mustard seed size of what? Min asabiyya. Asabiyya means prejudice. To be prejudiced towards somebody in a negative way. To look at them and attach your preconceived notions, or believe that I am superior than you simply based on where I'm from, what language I speak, what gender I am, what color I am, Sayyid or non-Sayyid, all these things we'll talk about. It's one of those topics that I wish I was talking to inside the main hall, not so much here in the tent. I think sometimes they need to hear it more than all of you, but sometimes I see it trickle into a little bit of our youth. Because that's kind of, expanding. The hadith is very strong, guys. The one now in their heart has a mustard seed size, not a very big size of prejudice. Allah now will do what? بَعَثَهُ اللَّهُ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ مَعَ الْأَعْرَابِ الْجَاهِلِيَّةِ. That Allah will raise them on the day of judgment with who? With the Jahil Arabs pre-Islam in Mecca. That's our status inside of the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when we decide now to tell ourselves the person in front of me is inferior because she's a woman, or because they're a non-Sayyid, or because they're a Sunni, or because they're a little bit of a darker shade of brown that I'd like, or because they don't speak the Urdu I speak, they're not from the same village as I am, they're not, or they're not as the same age as me. Your common complaints. And you guys as a generation are dismissed solely based on your age. So the preconceived notions, you guys don't know anything, you'll mess it up, don't let them do anything. They're good for taking the garbage out, vacuuming, maybe washing a pot or here and there, but leading the community, no, they're not capable of that. They're too young. Let's examine this a little bit. And sometimes I know I'm preaching to the choir, but sometimes I feel like there's a hint of that inside of us as well. Let's examine it. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. The first thing is that a couple of basic foundational realities that all of you know as a reminder. Number one, the God that you and I believe in is a merit-based God. I want anybody in this tent or anybody online to remove this thought in their heads that God works simply based on an arbitrary system. Okay? Random system. Nothing he does is random. That lacks wisdom. So everything that he either gives or accepts is based on merit. Merit of sincerity, merit of effort, merit of whatever the case may be. So anything that we earn in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's exactly what we do. We earn it. It's not given to anybody at all. The infallibility given to the Ahlul Bayt was earned by the Ahlul Bayt. The prophethood given to all the prophets were earned by the prophets. Okay? Which means that because he is a merit-based God, he rejects the opposite. Doesn't accept the opposite. That now, for some reason, myself up here, I believe that I have some merit based on nothing I've done. Respect based on nothing I've done. Respect based on things that I was born with. That's not accepted inside of Islam. I say that because there are still some people that believe that God is a male-dominated or male-dominating or male or pro-male God. Okay, and so these smaller discussions, I'm sorry, there are small discussions about why he's referred to as he in the Quran, or why are all these Sharia rulings there to make a man's life better, right? Essentially now attempting to suggest that God has a special place in his heart for males as opposed to females. Let's remove that thought from our head. Let's understand that God, whatever he gives, whatever he is asking from us, is based on merit and based on capacity, nothing else. That's point number one. That's very important. Point number two, tribalism. To group ourselves with those who are like us. And that's what essentially where prejudice comes from, right? Is that sometimes we empower each other when we belong to a certain group. Right? That's tribalism at its peak. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran very openly that I have now given that inside of you. It's innate for you to seek out your tribe. So naturally, when you see another muhajjaba sister at No Frills or Costco, you might say salam and smile and blah 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 and talk about iftar and talk about fasting and blah 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 because you have automatically now that sort of innate attraction to them or that innate connection to them at all. Or you might see a fellow member of your community at, let's say, your school. Either you go and say your salam or you run the other way. It depends on who the person is, right? This idea to attract ourselves, magnetically push ourselves towards people who are like us is innate, given to us by God. Surah Hujurat's very open. Ya ayyuhan nas inna khalaqnakum min dhakarin wa untha. We created you, all mankind. We created you from a male and a female. وَجَعَلْنَاكُمْ شُعُوبًا وَقَبَائِلًا. And we placed you in nations and tribes. So when you are innately now moving towards someone who's like you, whether it's gender, age, religion, creed, language, color of skin, whatever the case may be, know that that's innate. But the Quran goes on to say, Li ta'arafu. I did that. The lam before ta'arafu means what? The sabab, the reason why God did that was for you to understand each other, not for you to judge each other, not for you to question each other, not for you to feel like you're superior than others or look down on a tribe who's not yours. Inna akramakum indallahi atqakum. Here comes the merit-based portion. Allah only gives akram, honor, dignity, respect to the one who's who? Who's God conscious, who's pious. Piety has no gender. Piety has no color. Piety has no creed. Okay? So on one side, you're saying, look, we shouldn't be placed in tribes. On the other side, God says, wait a second, yes, I put you in tribes innately. So what do? How do we kind of reconcile this difference? You see, when you understand, again, we go to the Quran. Everything is the Quran. Quran. Surah Rum, we read it in the night of Qadr. Together in this very text. From verses 20 to 25, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, about 5 or 6 verses, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala starts every single verse with وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ. It's incredible discussion. Incredible. In those verses is a very famous marriage verse, right? That you find on a lot of our wedding invitations, right? وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ مِنْ خَلَقَ لَكُم مِنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا. That we have now, from our signs, God says, is that we have now placed for you and from you spouses, so you may find serenity with each other. Okay? He calls the entire process of marriage a sign of his. What's incredible is that what else does he include to be a sign of his? So in the beginning, he talks about the creation of you and I as human being from dirt, min turabin. That's a sign of his. Okay, it makes sense. خلق السماوات والأرض, the creation of the heavens and the earth, a sign of his. Okay. The moving of the night and the day, a sign of his. Sleep, a sign, all in the Quran. Sleep, a sign of his. Lightning and thunder, a sign of his. And the various tongues and colors, he says, that you see in creation, the various languages and colors of the skin you see, is what is a sign of God. So if we take these two verses together, we understand that yes, Allah placed us innately in tribes, no doubt about it. We gravitate towards those people that are like us, but not in the sense that because my tribe is stronger than yours, or prettier than yours, or more male than yours, or Sayyid and you're non-Sayyid, or Shia and you're, let's say, a Sunni. And that means that without any merit now, I'm automatically better than you? No, because that very race and language and color that you are disrespecting and deeming as inferior, God calls as a sign of his Quran. And you and I know he talks about those who reject his signs in a very harsh tone. As the dwellers of the hellfire. When asked what made you come to the hellfire, they'll say these are people who what? Who denied my signs. It becomes very serious now. You can't easily dismiss an entire culture of people. You can't easily sort of send an entire group to the hellfire. You can't easily assume that every member of this gender are all emotional, illogical beings. And I'll tell you, you might think that, oh, we're very progressed in 2022, Asad. I mean, that was our parents in the 40s. Wait a second now. Have you seen the state of our centers? Have you seen the state of our masjids? With the exception of a couple of different masjids, I've always seen that the women's hall is half the size of the men's hall. Always. Right now, there's a wading pool in the middle of our, mashallah, our women's hall right now. There's a wading pool. You want to go for a swim? By all means, in the middle of that ladies' hall. Okay, they put some tarp, maybe a few garbage cans, maybe a few chairs, blah blah blah, and they expect women with their kids and their baby seats and their bags to sit around this disgusting water and somehow now focus on a speech when drip 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 is coming from the middle of the hall. If that leak was in the men's hall, rest assured within 2 hours, dried, sealed, maybe even a new carpet installed. So let's not pretend like we've moved on now. We're woke. We're a little bit now. We're not quite there yet. Okay? So let me address a couple of things that are a little bit sensitive. Inshallah, your parents, if they hear what I have to say, they'll kill me tomorrow. But inshallah, I will survive to see tomorrow. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad, inshallah. You have to excuse my voice. It happens every month of Ramadan. As Eid comes forward, I'm losing my voice. It's been a very draining 26, 27 days. Historically, the first entity to show any level of prejudice based on nothing but the outer appearance of a creation was who? Shaitan. Even though Allah was very clear that the command to prostrate in front of Adam would only come about when I blow my spirit into him. يعني what makes all of us worthy of shaitan's sajda is not the fact that we are made from dirt. It's the fact that God blew his spirit inside of us. What that means is a different discussion altogether. But the fact that Allah's command was very specifically placed after وَنَفَخْتُ فِيهِ مِنْ رُوحِي, I blew into Adam from my spirit. Meaning what? I gave the human being the capability and the potential now to be like me at a 0.001%. If I'm forgiving, they can also be forgiving. If I'm knowledgeable, they can be knowledgeable. If I can hide your faults, you can hide the faults of others. If I can do this, you can do that. That's all within you. We choose, or I choose, let's say, to deny that path. That's my choice. But those elements are up to us. So there is a potential inside of us that we need to actualize. If I can sum up our purpose in life in this world, it is to actualize the potential to be God-like inside of us in one sentence. And we do it in this world because this is the world to do it. This is the process, the falling, getting up, right? The one step back, two steps forward, right? Make a mistake, I'm sorry, God. Make another mistake, I'm sorry, God. Figure things out, all in this world. Right? That's why we shouldn't be so quick to leave this world. Nor should we pray for a quick death. As long as we're in this world, we have a chance. I always say this, when you wake up in the morning, you have two things in your pocket right away. A choice and a chance. Every single morning. A choice and a chance. What we do with those two things is the epitome of what free will is. Okay? What Shaitan's biggest mistake was, he made two major blunders. The first thing was that he actually believed that he was the rightful individual to be Allah's Khalifa. Okay? Think about it, guys. 4,000 years he worships God. Okay? 4,000 years. To the point where he is the source of pride and the source of envy of all the angels. They're wowed by Shaitan. Before Adam even came to the picture, they're wowed, blown away by him. And then there's a job posting in God's kingdom, right? That job posting is what? I need a Khalifa. Now hiring a Khalifa. Someone who represents me on earth. Okay? And they thought, oh, it'll be an internal position filled internally. They thought, oh, shoo-in, man, Shaitan will get it. Right? It's the shoo-in. Imagine now you're working for a company for what? I don't know, 15, 20 years. And the next step that you can take naturally up the corporate ladder is VP. And you see, let's say on the bulletin board, there's opening for a VP. Everyone's coming and already congratulating you. You got this. Just go through the motions. Go through, and you're like, yeah, okay, all right, I'll meet you. But you know and I know that I'm a shoo-in. Okay? A week later, it's announced that some guy from the outside is now your new VP. You won't take that sitting down. Adam comes into the picture, Shaitan goes crazy. Whoa. This guy just got here. Hasn't done a single moment of worship. 4,000 years I worshiped you. The first thing he did was that he didn't submit to the wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why it's possible. This is the scary part now. It's possible that we can worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but not enslave ourselves to him. Because my question to Shaitan would have been, bro, those 4,000 years of worship, why didn't that convert into you submitting blindly to God? Why now all of a sudden the same God that you would prostrate in front of is the same God now that you're questioning? Number one. The second blunder he made was he saw Adam as clay and clay only. All he saw was the color of his skin. That's all he saw. How do I know that? When God asked him, why didn't you do sajda? Again, God's grace, right? Look, it's me and you. I'm talking to you. I'm giving you a chance for you to, what? Defend yourself. Tell me exactly why you didn't do it, even though I was the one that commanded you. He says, what? Ana khayru minhu, I'm better than he is. Khalaqtani min nar wa khalaqtuhu min teen is only evidence and arguments on the witness stand. When God put him up there, God's now cross-examining him, saying, look, this is your chance now. Defend yourself. Explain yourself. I'm listening. Give me your press release statement. And you came up with this? That I'm fire, he's clay? Na 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 booba? That's what you came up with? That's your whole philosophy? You reduced my Khalifa to nothing but clay? You saw the outward and you assumed he was not worthy of my Khilafat? That upset Allah to the point where what does he do? Sends him out. You're out. Get out. Fahbit anha. Fahbit means the fall of shaitan. Habata in Arabic means to fall. That was the fall of shaitan. All based on a moment of prejudice. In there was jealousy, in there was envy, in there was ego, all the things I've talked about now for the past, 10 nights with all of you. All of that comes, these are all connected conversations. So let's avoid being those individuals who follow the path of shaitan. And sometimes that satanic reality is very much alive inside of our community. Look at our marriages. We still have people in this day and age with all that discussion, all the pre-marriage courses, all the post-marriage courses, all the ulama talking about it. Do you guys know any idea? Maybe not. Back when we're talking about 30, 35 years, when I was your age, not that long ago, 25 years when I was your age. Let's not go crazy, okay? When I would sit in that hall growing up, in the first 10 days of Muharram, there was maybe a handful of topics that the alim will talk about. Okay? History, Shia Sunni for sure, Imam Hussein maybe, that's about it. Okay? They broke barriers. These older ulama broke barriers when they would take the first 10 days of Muharram and talk about the upbringing of children. They would break barriers. I remember Maulana Rizvi 10 years ago. First Ashra topics are very limited in terms of what the public will accept. If you talk about something wrong, they'll hang you. He talked about the Islamic family structure across 10 nights. And when I asked him why, I called him after he came back. I said, Maulana, you're very bold. This is the topic. How'd it go? I simply made this topic a priority based on my experience. After all of that, we still have people coming up to me and others, people you know, right? The Rishta aunties that we have inside of our communities. Those classic Rishta aunties. Okay? We're always trying to pair these people, those people, this people together. There are still people who call the Rishta, and my mom is one of them. Call my mother and say, I'm looking for a girl for my son. Okay. What is your criteria? MashaAllah. They go towards eye color. They go towards complexion. Not even color. A shade in that color. Hair color. Language. Within the language, a certain dialect. And my mom's waiting for taqwa, piety, salat, good family. No. A lot of you guys in this tent, front and back, are at an age right now in your life where you are looking for a spouse. And hopefully by now, those days are gone where your parents will tell you who you marry. This will be a conversation. Okay? And I'm here to tell you that the right spouse is the one that you connect with on a basis of faith. Not the one who pronounces off the way you pronounce off. Not the one who eats the same meals as you. not the one who can read the same languages as you. I have seen too many cases, where all these superficial, and they're superficial, I'm sorry. I'll give you a hadith in a moment that always blows my mind, will blow your mind as well. These superficial criteria, I've seen those really fade very quickly. Those green eyes go from being, oh my God, to I can't stand them. The connection you make with your potential spouse has to be through conversation with them. I'm not talking about a year every night, for 2 hours, this and that, and after 10 months, your parents ask you, so what do you think? We're still thinking about it. No, bro. At that moment now, like usually within about, a couple of conversations, a couple of Timmy's runs, maybe a walk in the park that supervised, right? You have people 20 feet behind you walking with you, that kind of stuff. At that moment, you have a pretty good idea that this person is at least possible or not possible. Everything else afterwards, her shoes were from, I don't know, Walmart. His laugh is annoying, blah, blah, blah. These things are things afterwards. I humbly ask you, please, when you speak to your parents about marriage, and I know a lot of you, and I know that you guys are looking at faith and piety and taqwa, and they're stuck on villages sometimes in a certain country. Please do your best to talk them out of it. I've seen marriages. The only reason why they married their daughter to the guy was because he was a sayyid. A horrible human being, I'm sorry to say. Beg them not to marry your daughter. She's too good for him. I beg them. No faith, no deen, this and that, no sense of, no effort, lazy, blah, blah, blah. But he's a sayyid. Show them a great guy, everything. Faith, taqwa, piety, education, impeccable family, but he's a non-sayyid. So they said no to him and yes to him. Lo and behold, within 6 months, there's a divorce. Of course there will be. This is the problem with prejudice inside of our communities. And the change will happen with you. This is where they won't like me. You have to fight sometimes. I'm not saying take on the whole khanan. I love him. No, not like that. This is not Dave Das or Bollywood. Please, let's take it easy now for a second. But if you are trying to uphold, I got an email last week. Email. If I'm lying, may lightning come strike me down right now. I got an email last week that told me this. Can you please convince my parents that my wedding needs to be separate? Can you convince my parents that I don't want music? Same kid. I don't want music at my wedding, and I want a partition down the middle. I don't want there to be one hall. I want 2 separate halls. I'm willing to front the money for it, but they're not budging. What will people say? Can you convince my parents? It reminds me of a hadith by Imam Ali. There'll come a time where the parents will learn the deen from their children. Not happening right now? Absolutely it's happening right now. The prejudice and the removal of that prejudice lies inside of you. They won't listen. They'll listen eventually. Have a criteria for yourself that's based on Islam. Those of you who want to get married, have a criteria. If someone presents to you a person, I don't know, I guess so, that's not a criteria. Have a list in your head. Islam's giving that list already, by the way. Have a list of what things are breakable, of what things are non-negotiable. Okay? Of what things are deal breakers, what things are not deal breakers. Understand you're looking for a person who has a good foundation. Right? The nitty-gritty details afterwards in between, his sock color or the way she ties her hijab, will all happen, inshallah, after the nikah. That's between you and her or you and him. But the structure has to be there. After a while, like I said, those superficial things, what? They outgrow themselves. Come to the hadith, Imam Sadiq, alayhi salatu wasalam. He says, if you marry for looks and money, and not for piety, you'll lose all 3. The piety was never there to begin with. Money eventually fades. And the beauty that you were so banking on, that you want an attractive spouse on your arm, and there's nothing wrong with attraction being one of the criteria. Let's get that straight right now. Okay? Now, what's attractive, what's not, the importance of that, when it comes to men and women, are completely different. Okay? If this was a marriage seminar, I would describe it to you, but it's not a marriage seminar. It's turning into one, and inshallah, I'll go towards prejudice. But who is beautiful in the eyes of a man, who's beautiful in the eyes of our sisters, is completely different. Nonetheless, physical attraction is important. Absolutely, it's important. But Imam Sa'd said that's the only reason why you married them. You'll lose all three. If you marry for taqwa, and there's a little bit of money, and there's so-so looks, you'll gain all three eventually. Let me explain. I say this from the deen, I say it also from my own experience. I have spoken to couples. I have gone to see them, and I'm not a counselor by any means. I simply lend an ear, a couple of advices. If it gets out of my sort of scale, I turn them towards a counselor. But I have sat there in a room with two people that both of them belong on GQ magazine covers individually. Hot couple 2022. Right? It's like, man, you guys are gonna have beautiful kids. And they can't stand the sight of each other. They use the word ugly, disgusting. He makes me nauseous when I look at him. In front of this guy. She's become the ugliest person I know. They can't sit in the same room together. Ask them for criteria, and they're flat out, and they have told me that I thought I loved her. I didn't love her. I loved the way she looked. The opposite is also true. Two people may not be ordinary looks, right? But they can't separate from each other. Sometimes in one house, they have to be on the same level of the house. After a while, the beauty on the inside converts to the beauty on the outside. And after a while, the ugliness on the inside shows its face on the outside. So here Imam Sadiq is saying piety, piety, piety. That's a beautiful person on the inside. There's sometimes nothing more attractive than a person now who's godly, who's respectful. You want to be with them. When they speak beautiful words. When it's time to laugh, they laugh. When it's time to have fun, they have fun. When it's time to put the Quran on their heads, they're right there in the front, putting the Quran on their heads. That person is beautiful in the eyes of Allah, and eventually, after you get over the honeymoon phase, they start to become beautiful to you as well. This prejudice we have when it comes to marriages, Ya Allah, I don't understand. I get where they're coming from, but sometimes I don't know where all of you come from. And the best is when, mashallah, the brother isn't like people like. It's like me searching for a beautiful spouse. Okay, like have I seen myself in the mirror? Like, come on, man. Like, Allah blessed me with one, alhamdulillah. I got lucky there, but look at me. I don't deserve a beautiful spouse. I have more hair on my chin than I have on my head. In what world am I sit there and say, no, she's not pretty enough. I want the one that belongs. Just moose it. Like, what exactly am I going to sit there and say yes, no, yes, no? Dude, you have a breathing human who wants to be with you, take it. I love the fact that the guys, mashallah, who need a little bit of help, they have the biggest requirements, mashallah. Have you seen yourself in the mirror, bro? So these things have to be a little bit away from the idea of prejudice. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. My last point, and since I'm already at the edge of the cliff, let's jump over the cliff. Sayyid and non-Sayyid, Ya Allah. Let's do this one too, why don't we, while we're here. What makes me a Sayyid, my last name is Jafri. My lineage goes up to Imam Sadiq. I am a Sayyid. If I wore my amama, that, by the way, I have in my room, two of them in my closet. If I decide to wear it one day, it'll be black. Great. Okay? The black amama on my head gives me zero preference on the day of judgment. Nobody will ask me for my last name in my grave. Everybody will ask me, what did you do in this world? What makes me a Sayyid is not my last name, nor my father's last name. It's what I do. Do I represent the family or not? Do I represent the Prophet's family or not? When I am doing something, are they reminded of Imam Sadiq or not? Otherwise, when you look at the Ashab and the companions of the Holy Prophet, the highest level of them were non-Arabs, non-Sayyids, as you would say. From Bilal to Salman al-Farsi to others. To the point where Salman, a non-Sayyid, gets all the way up to Minna Ahlul Bayt. You are from the Ahlul Bayt. What's the point of you attaching the criteria of a Sayyid for marriage if that Sayyid has nothing to do with the deen whatsoever? I know Sayyids who are atheists. I know Sayyids who are abusers, who are gamblers. I know Sayyids in this very city who are alcoholics. I know non-Sayyids right now who are serving the deen at the utmost level. Yes, when you are a Sayyid and you are serving the deen, or you are pious, then yes, that's a maqam level you should be proud of. Because now, not only are you now respecting the deen, you're upholding the dignity of the Prophet's family, no doubt about it. But when someone like me sins or disrespects the deen, you better hope I'm getting 2 times the beats. Because one is the fact that I have angered God, one is I have now given a bad name to the Prophet's family. This is a Sayyid. So we have this idea that, again, this preconceived notion that I will gain some sort of a level in the hereafter based on zero merits. And I'm sorry, even as Shias we are told, there's a boarding pass printed for me, a one-way ticket. You come, cry for Hussein, you say Ya Ali a few times. Everything else you do doesn't matter. You can drink, you can get high, you can fornicate, you can do all of that. Doesn't matter. You're going straight to heaven. I mentioned inside the majalis, all of us have a share in heaven. Simply because we love the Ahlul Bayt. That comes from straight hadith. A share of heaven. It's there for us. What we do with those shares is up to us. Further invest, sell out, cash out in this world, up to us. It's there for us, waiting for us. But don't assume that that's given to you without merit. The potential is there that can also be taken away from us. So my brothers and sisters, I said way too much tonight. And I will wait for my phone to blow up, inshallah, by tomorrow. I am asking you humbly, please. Understand God's a merit-based God. Prejudice is absolutely rejected in Islam. Do not judge the deen by the ignorance of the people around you. I'm not naive. There's a ton of prejudice inside of us. There is a small racist inside of us, a small prejudice inside of us, absolutely. We have to fight those tendencies. And some fight them and some don't, unfortunately. The deen says that if you want to gain a certain level inside of Allah's eyes, it has nothing to do with the shade of the color of your skin, or your gender, or your age. Just because you're older doesn't mean you're wiser. Just because you're younger doesn't mean you're foolish. It's all based on what you have presented in your a'mal. We ask you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to accept our qaleel efforts, inshallah, to understand these very delicate topics. Give us tawfiq to be better, non-judgmental. Oh my God, the judgment inside of our communities. It's crazy. We cancel people like it's nothing. A sister walks into the hall, her hijab is a little bit off, she is bound for the hellfire. Baba, who said that? You might be covering your hair. You might be covering your hair perfectly. 40 pins in your hijab, but your heart doesn't have the hijab. Your eyes don't have the hijab. Your lips, your tongue doesn't have the hijab. Maybe this one sister has the hijab of the eyes and the heart and the ears and the tongue. She just can't bring herself to cover her bangs. I'm not condoning that. You don't need to judge. A boy walks in, with a pair of jeans that are one size too small. Just one size too small. Just one size too small. His hair is a little bit longer than they should be. And that's it. Barbad, Gomara, look at these kids. Then they turn to me. What are you doing with them? The judgment has to stop. If you want to be known to be somebody in the eyes of Allah, inna akramakum indallahi atqakum. Piety, piety, piety. Piety has no color, has no gender, has no judgment. In the eyes of Allah, inshallah. We ask you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to forgive our sins, accept our aman, make us beside the Imam when he comes. A couple of quick announcements, I'm sorry. Tonight we'll do a very brief aman as the 27th night inside of the hall. Saturday night we have a program called A Night with the Quran, a beautiful program. We've invited qaris from the Afghan community. We have spoken word by our youth. We have 4 or 5 young guys coming forward and presenting verses of the Quran that they were inspired by. A beautiful program, 1 hour max long, inshallah, on the last Saturday of the month of Ramadan. Please join us 10 p.m. Eastern after iftar on Saturday. Thank you very much for your patience. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى